Erik ten Hag is likely to be given more time to turn things around as Sir Jim Ratcliffe warns things have to change. Players are puzzled by ten Hag's rotation policy and links with a Bundesliga striker with more goal contributions this season so far than Harry Kane. This plus all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So, the last, few weeks, you could even argue and say months, all the talk around the place has all been regarding Ten Hag and his future, and it was billed as this big kind of meeting that was happening yesterday. And I did say in yesterday's video that I kind of personally didn't feel that there was going to be any sort of announcement or anything, because it was already a kind of pre-planned meeting. And we had so many conflicting stories from different journalists, some saying one thing, others saying another, and they're all kind of credible. Normally when that happens, I just think they're just guessing, and a lot of them don't actually know what's going on and just giving their kind of opinions. So let's go through all the latest regarding the manager situation. So Samuel Lucas said the following: there have been conflicting whispers regarding Erik ten Hag's fate, and a source said nothing should be read into the club's failure to communicate an outcome on Tuesday night. A United source said the gathering in Knightsbridge was a routine monthly executive committee meeting, and that there was no reason to expect a statement in its aftermath. Ineos have been asked for comments, but there's as of yet no comments and no real kind of leaks coming out, apart from what I'm going to run through in a second, a few more kind of stories regarding his future. And then again, conflicting stories from credible sources. So we've got the Times saying that Erik ten Hag has not been told that his job is under threat after today's meeting. He is therefore planning to be in charge of the next game. And then that contradicts what the Mirror was saying, that Erik ten Hag is still unsure if he will remain in charge with his future top of the agenda when United's executives meet in London. Or met in London for their scheduled talks. So again, conflicting stories regarding the manager's future, which I do think is just a bit of media frenzy, trying to stir up a hornet's nest. And I think some of you have been right in the comments when you've been saying over the last kind of few days that I don't think a decision's going to necessarily be made yet, and they are going to give Erik ten Hag more time, which I'll go through some of the updates in a second. And that's how it kind of feels at the moment, is that nothing's been announced. There's no kind of talk of anything. Erik ten Hag's gone on his holiday, and it just seems that maybe they're going to give him a bit more time before making any quick decision. Let me know what you think about that, though, in the comments. And then Jamie Jackson said, I get the feeling that he, meaning Sir Jim, wants Erik ten Hag to go, and Jamie Jackson's a good source. He's got inside information regarding United, and that's widely been kind of documented. I've been bringing you that a few times over the last last week or so. I think it was from the Muppeteers, and a few other sources have kind of said that if it was down to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, that Erik ten Hag might be gone by now, but he's not the one making the decision. He's going off of the recommendations of Dan Ashworth and Barada. The feeling is that they want to give ten Hag a little bit more time to try and turn things around. And that's been kind of confirmed by the Muppeteers, who is a good source when it comes to United, who had the following to say. So firstly, the football structure wanted to give Erik ten Hag more time. So Jim will leave the decision up to them. So Jim has made it clear he won't stand in their way if they choose to sack ten Hag. And so Jim has warned that something needs to change, which is interesting. So, the kind of feeling I get from all of that is that obviously they've discussed the future and stuff of Erik ten Hag, or discussed his and the start of the season and bits as well. Clearly Sir Jim Ratcliffe is not happy by this situation and is saying to Dan Ashworth and everyone, well, it's your kind of decision if you want to remove him. He's not going to stand in their way, but has kind of warned everybody that things do need a change. And I agree. We definitely need to improve over the next few weeks going forward once the international break's over. The Muppeteers also said that he thinks ten Hag will get more time while considering what would happen if they make a change. So effectively that there is no viable candidates available at the moment, and it would be likely to be Ruud van Nistelrooy to take over as interim. But he did say that they'll be more proactively looking at contingencies, and Ineos were underprepared for how bad it was going to be. So again, the Muppeteers kind of suggesting that one, Sir Jim has told that things have to change. He's happy for them to make the decision, but then also that now that they're going to start looking, because they weren't apparently ready for this or didn't expect this kind of bad start to the season, so they're not really prepared, or there's no contingencies actually in place at the moment for if they were to remove Ten Hag, but that's going to be the case going forward, where they might start looking. So you might hear a few more stories, or we might hear a few more reports around maybe Ineos looking at other managers or speaking to other people if that leaks out. And it could be just them kind of making plans that if things don't improve, then they're going to kind of reassess it in the next international break as well, which is probably, it is what it is, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And the kind of ultimate thing is, obviously, we're not the decision makers, and I know we all have different opinions on this because this is massively divided. And I read your comments. I know some of you are Ten Hag out. I know some of you are kind of behind. No, we're not don't say behind Ten Hag, but Ten Hag in, and kind of looking at the players and stuff like that as well. And I get both sides of the argument. But either way, I think going forward now, we're either going to have to improve, or he's just going to sack himself anyway, because if the results don't improve, there's no way Ineos are going to sit on their hands and pretty much effectively write the season off. If we don't get any better over the next few weeks after the international break, then he's going to get sacked anyway, I think, in the next one. So I think it's just a case of let's just wait and see. For me, get behind the team, hope that we can kind of improve and that something clicks and we find a bit of form from somewhere. We find some kind of playing style from somewhere to get a few results over the next few weeks. But yeah, we're just going to need to kind of wait and see what happens. And then the final story regarding that was from Sam C, who is a credible source, said that Erik Ten Hag is highly likely to remain Manchester United manager, knowing the club's current situation isn't up to standard, but confident he can turn it around. So seems like the kind of latest leaks from the kind of media and sources are that, yes, they've had the meeting. Obviously, his future was discussed in that meeting. It'd be naive to think that they weren't sat there talking about the start of the season and the manager. And by all accounts, it looks like he's going to get more time, which it is what it is. But let me know what you think about that, though, in the comments. So let's move on. So Andy Cole's had an interesting kind of statement to say regarding the manager situation. Say, whatever the people in charge decide to do, it will be done with the best interests of the club in mind. That's that. However, you look at it, for an individual who to win 2 club cup competitions in their first 2 seasons at Manchester United, that's not lucky. You can't be lucky 2 seasons on the bounce. The club will do whatever they decide to do. But if you look at the bigger picture, you can't just blame the manager. The manager picks the players, and but the players are the ones that have to go out there and win football matches. That's the way that it is. And again, I know some of you will kind of be behind that in the comments as well, where, is it the players? Is it the manager? We're in that kind of situation again. And according to Andy Cole, he kind of thinks that actually, you can't be lucky winning 2 trophies in 2 seasons. And yes, the manager might have faults and he might be you might disagree with the manager and stuff, but ultimately you're the ones on the pitch that have to go out and perform, which, is difficult to argue against. Although I do think, on the flip side, I do think that tactically we are being set up to not play to everybody's strengths at the moment. But it's an interesting point of view. Let me know if you agree or disagree with Andy Cole in the comments. And then Peter Schmeichel has also said that Erik Ten Hag is still the manager and I will support him because I want the club to do well. I don't want United to be the club that changes the manager all the time. I hope they stick with Erik because we need consistency now. Let him have a fair go at this. So 2 kind of former legends, I would say, Andy Cole and Peter Schmeichel. Kind of backing the manager in a way. Andy Cole kind of suggesting it's the players that might be mainly to blame because they're the ones that ultimately have to go on the pitch and perform. And then Schmeichel kind of also saying that now that we've got everybody around the manager, let them have a fair crack of the whip and let's see how that develops. But again, it's a results driven industry. We can't be sat in 14th by the next international break or even worse. There's no way that Ineos and everyone in charge will put up for that. So we need to wait and see. So that's all the kind of latest regarding the manager situation. Let me know what you think about it all, though, in the comments. And then this was an interesting report coming from the Daily Mail saying that Erik Ten Hag's rotation policy is puzzling some of his own players. Many of them would prefer to keep playing to find their rhythm. So a few more kind of player links suggested it disharmony around around Erik ten Hag's rotation policy, which I don't like the kind of stories and reports coming out regarding it. But this is one where, I think there's two sides of the coin to this, because I don't necessarily think that it's wrong to drop players if they're not playing well. I just don't like the rotation policy that he doesn't drop players that aren't playing very well as well. For me, there's a clear bias with some players within the squad, and that cannot be good behind the scenes, because I'm not one of these. Like, in my opinion, this is my opinion, you can let me know yours in the comments, right? If you have like a run of bad games, then you shouldn't be just consistently being allowed to try to play through that. I get the kind of feeling from the players, though, how am I meant to, improve on my form if I'm not getting in the team? So I can kind of see that side of it. But ultimately, you've got a player behind the scenes that's waiting for his chance. And if you're underperforming week in, week out, you can't just keep doing that, because that's going to create unrest between the player that you're competing with, and ultimately it's what you do on the pitch that matters. But for me, it's the kind of inconsistency in it. Do you know what I mean? Where he'll rotate players that actually are performing quite well, but keep the ones on the pitch, and won't rotate the ones that aren't performing very well. So I could understand the players having a bit of an issue with that, but I don't necessarily agree with the players if they're saying, well, I had one bad game, now I'm out the team, because unfortunately it's a dog-eat-dog world. That's the way that it works. That's why we have a squad. That's why you have players, two, sometimes three players fighting for each position to create that competition. And if you're not performing on the pitch, then you shouldn't be allowed to stay on the pitch, or you shouldn't just be allowed to be picked just so you can find your form again, in my opinion. But for me, as I mentioned, it's the fact that actually we have players that are underperforming, that never seem to get substituted, never seem to, and they always seem to play regardless of what the other players do in that position, which has always been the case. So with Ten Hag, it's always, but that was one of the reasons why Jadon Sancho spat his kind of dummy out his pram, because obviously not just because of the comment, but one of the reasons he was citing was the fact that he was, not getting picked, and Anthony was absolutely stinking the place out at the time, and still has, which he had a valid point. I don't agree with how he went around doing it, but, the argument was there to be had that actually, yeah, you're probably right, but I just don't agree with the childish way Sancho particularly went about it. But that's just one player, and I'm sure there's others in the team and the squad where they're looking at it maybe like, well, hold on, I've been dropped because I gave the ball away in this game and had a particularly bad game, but what's going on with this player that's consistently getting picked when he's not been very well. So yeah, that's my opinion on that, but let me know yours in the comments. And then the final story I've got for you is regarding a bit of transfer news. So Manchester United, Liverpool and Arsenal are among the clubs showing an interest in the potential transfer of in-form Eintracht Frankfurt forward Omar Marmoush at the moment. Sources with a close understanding of the player's situation have informed Court Offside that Marmoush has been on the radar of the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal for some time, while Man United, West Ham and Nottingham Forest could also be teams to watch. Now, I'm going to say firstly, take that story with a pinch of salt, because it came from Court Offside, who do have some credible journalists working for them and some not credible journalists. This unfortunately came from one of their not credible journalists, and it felt a little bit like they were just putting Man United's name in there just to create interest and create views and clicks. The player's heavily been linked with Liverpool recently, but what a player he would be. He looks a really, really good prospect. 8 total appearances so far this season, 9 goals, 4 assists, which is higher than Harry Kane at 11. 25, good age, can play as a centre forward or a second striker, and can play left wing as well. Has played off the right in the past as well. He looks a really, really kind of promising option. These are his stats on FBref. He's up there with the highest kind of performers in Europe at the moment. Top 97 for assists, top 95 for expected goals, top 90 for shot creating actions. Do you know what I mean? A really all action kind of attacking player, and doing really well so far at the start of this season. And positionally, as I mentioned, can pretty much play centre forward, second striker, left wing. Like I said, has played right wing in the past as well. So while I would say take that story initially with a pinch of salt, I think that would be a fantastic player to kind of bring in form at a good age, where if you do want someone maybe with a bit more experience up front, because I know that's a concern for some of you in the comments as well, about getting an experienced kind of goal scorer, not of an age where he's coming to the end of his career, coming into his prime. So I'd be all for. I'd be all for bringing in a player like that can play in multiple positions, and can kind of help maybe take the pressure off some of the young players that we've got in certain positions, because I do think that having too many young players, with all the pressure on them as well, is a little bit, it's a little bit harsh on them, is the way I would kind of put it through. He's Egyptian, so while as I mentioned, while I would say take it with a pinch of salt for now, but a really interesting player, definitely one that I would be excited if the reports do get a little bit more credibility behind them. So, and I'll bring you any updates on that as well. But let me know what you think about that. So that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. I do enjoy reading them. Smash a like on the video on your way up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you in the next one.